Welcome. I'm glad to see you. Last time we were together, we were talking about the story of Noah. And Noah and his wife and sons had gotten off of the ark, as had all the animals, and Noah's sons and their wives began having children. And then their children had children. And then their children had children. And so the earth started to be populated again with lots of people. And as they were living together, they began thinking that they could be a really great nation. Now, they were all speaking the same language, just like I speak English. You probably speak English too. And so everybody spoke the same language, and they were moving around together. And one day they came to a place called the Plain of Shinar. Now I've got our scene set here, but let's make it a little bit more detailed. So I'm going to add these trees, and I'm going to add these trees in the back. And when they got to the Plain of Shinar, they were like, let's live here. We can be comfortable here. We can build our lives here. And you know what? Let's build a great big tower in the center, way up into the heavens. And they agreed. And so the people began having this discussion. So perhaps this was the person that might have brought that up about building the tower. We don't know. These are just representations. And we know there were children. And I'm sure some of the people were asking questions. How are we going to build this tower? And then here's a group. And they started talking about it. And they found some soil. So soil is the same thing as dirt. And they began building, using the soil, to make bricks. And then they found some tar. So here's a brick. And this guy's going to have a little hammer, mallet. And they found some tar that could make the bricks stick together. And everyone pitched in to make the bricks and to begin building the Tower of Babel. I'm going to put this back here in the landscape. Put a couple more bricks lying around. So they were working on their bricks. But what happened as the people did that, they had a real sense of self-importance. That this is what I want to do. This is what we're going to do because we're really great. But you see, God sees our hearts. And God knew that their motivation wasn't about honoring Him. It was about honoring themselves. And God was probably thinking, I'm not going to let happen what happened before when people forgot about me. I'm going to make sure that doesn't happen again before Noah's flood, before the flood. So God did something incredible. So imagine all these people, they knew one another, they had relationships together. And imagine one morning coming to work, and all of a sudden, the people that you were working with didn't speak the same language as you. So there are hundreds of languages on our planet. So imagine your friend all of a sudden forgetting how to speak English and speaking to you in a language that you didn't understand. And so somebody might have come to work and said, "May I borrow your hammer?" And the person thought they were talking about something else. Maybe he hands them a brick. They didn't know what they were saying to one another. And God did this to protect them from becoming too self-important. And so rather than them all being together anymore, it became very confusing. Very confusing. And so the people began or stopped building the tower because they couldn't even communicate with one another the directions of what they were supposed to do. And so people started separating from one another. And maybe all the people that spoke Spanish went in one direction. Let me show you these people. Didn't show you this one. And this couple. And so people started going in different directions. So we're just going to put a few people up here to illustrate that. And so families began leaving. And everyone started going different ways. Let's add some folks over going the opposite direction, because there were lots of people by that time. So we're going to bring these gentlemen back on the scene, and they started going this way here. And the word Babel means confused. And sometimes we use that word, like we'll talk about a baby babbling, and add these gentlemen. They're heading this direction. And so you can see they couldn't talk to one another. And so God confused their language so that they would stop thinking that they were so important that they didn't need him. You see, you and I always need God. And God tells us in Psalm, the book of Psalms, 127, chapter 127, verse 1, "Except the Lord build the house, they labor in vain who build it." Now what that means is that unless we're being obedient to God, basically, we're wasting our time. And God wants us to do things that are congruent with what he wants us to do. He wants us to be aware of everything that we do, think, say, being done to honor him, because he created us for relationship with him. I hope that you can learn something from this today. That God, in confusing their languages, that was really an act of love for him to protect them from getting that very grandiose, self-important feeling. He wanted them to know that they needed him. And he always is wanting you and me to seek him and to be in relationship with him, to talk to him in prayer, to read the Bible, or if we can't read yet, to have our moms and dads read that to us. And so we will continue with our story next time, but I want you to remember the lesson that we have learned today. Except the Lord build a house, they labor in vain who build it. I'll see you next time.